A big topic of discussion going into this year's offseason is whether or not Kirk Cousins is going to be the Minnesota Vikings quarterback next season and even further on in the future. And so Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was actually asked about this situation, what his intentions are, what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. Are we going to bring him back? Are we going to draft a guy? What's going to happen here? And Kwesi Adofo-Mensah basically said, hey, look, my intentions have always been to have Kirk Cousins come back for another season or more. That has always been my intentions for 2024, okay? So don't take that for granted. So we looked at that, and we're going to dive through his quotes and kind of basically tell you exactly what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said about Kirk Cousins and what the future potentially looks like for the Minnesota Vikings. Before we do that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So let's get into it. If middle ground in contract talks can be found, Kirk Cousins will be back with the Minnesota Vikings for the 2024-25 season. Vikings General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on Wednesday provided a clear answer when asked if he wants Cousins back as the team's quarterback next season. Here's what he said. Yeah, I've been pretty consistent with that. Kirk, the player, is somebody that, as we saw what he does to this team, I thought we were playing really good football before he got injured. It's the most important position in sports. It ultimately shows or always comes down to, can you find an agreement that works for both sides and all of those things? But as a player, it's certainly my intention to have him back here. That is exactly what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said. He said, look, yes, my intention is to have Kirk Cousins be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, this organization, next season. We just have to make sure we get a contract done that's comfortable for both sides and move on. And we're done with that, right? But there's also that factor of drafting a young guy, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels. Who's going to follow us? There's still that potential possibility, and that's all because of Kirk Cousins' age, how much money he might potentially want, the Achilles injury, how well is he going to perform after that? So there's a lot of factors that play into it, but Kwesi Adofo-Mensah really isn't fazed by any of that, because here's what he said about that situation. He says, there's a lot of factors that go into these things. It's age, injury, but it's also performance. How do you believe the performance will go? And there's different examples through time, and obviously you have to pay attention to the person and what he puts into his body and how regimented and detailed he is. All those factors go into it, but at the end of the day, you're just taking risk. We try to measure it as best we can and protect ourselves and ensure against it, but on his side, he's trying to take less risk. That's his job, and they should do that. We'll try to find a place in the middle, and we'll see where we end up. So I wouldn't put it past the Minnesota Vikings to sign Kirk Cousins, and if Kirk Cousins resigns, the Vikings could still take a quarterback high in the NFL draft. Here's what Kwesi said. It's the most important position in our sport, so you want to be thinking long-term and short-term. The Vikings are going to pursue actions that help us in both windows, and that's open to any position in the draft, whether we picked 11th or 23rd. We're trying to make this organization better for the short term and the long term. This right here, re-signing Kirk Cousins and drafting a quarterback, fixes both. You got the short term with Kirk Cousins. You can get about a year, maybe two years out of Kirk Cousins. And if you do draft a quarterback right away with that 11th pick, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, we've already talked about it, one of those guys, now he can learn behind Kirk Cousins, learn the system, learn the offense of KOC, and flourish in year 3 when it's his time to start, or even year 2 when it's his time to start. Now we have a franchise quarterback set up for the next 8 years, at least 5 years for sure, right? Because that's the rookie contract. So we're looking at both the short term and the long term. But Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's intentions are to have Kirk Cousins be the Minnesota Vikings quarterback for next season, and who knows for how long after that. But that is his intentions. Will we take a quarterback in the first round? Not 100% sure. I'd assume that's the way they're going to go, but assume that Kirk Cousins will still be a Minnesota Viking when next season rolls around. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and Skol Vikes.